I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. It was a Thursday evening, unremarkably mild and forgettable, until I turned my key into the lock of our suburban home and pushed the door open. The silence inside was thicker than usual, an ominous stillness that prickled the back of my neck. Dropping my keys on the hallway table, I called out, "Honey, I'm home." No response. The quiet gnawed at me as I loosened my tie and ventured further inside. The sound of distant, muffled voices finally reached my ears as I neared the kitchen. Through the crack of the partially open door, laughter spilled out, her laughter, twined intimately with a deeper, unfamiliar chuckle. Pushing the door open, the scene before me unfolded like a slow-motion nightmare. There, under the sink with pipes and tools strewn around, was a man I had never seen before. His shirt was off, showcasing a tattooed canvas of skin, and next to him, sitting a bit too close, was my wife, Lila. Her hand brushed against his arm, her smile wide and flirtatious. I cleared my throat, and they both jerked upright. "Tom! You're home early," Lila exclaimed, her voice pitching into nervous octaves. She scrambled to her feet, smoothing down her blouse. "This is, Mike. The plumber." Mike, apparently not just a plumber but also a player in this clandestine act, extended a hand which I didn't take. His smirk was irritatingly unperturbed. "Heard your sink was in dire straits, mate." I forced a smile, my gaze shifting between him and Lila. "Apparently so. How bad is it?" Lila interjected quickly, "Oh, it's terrible. I tried to fix it, but just made it worse. So, I had to call Mike. We used to go to the same gym," she added, as if that explained the cozy scene. As Mike crawled back under the sink, I pulled Lila aside. "Can we talk?" In the laundry room, her eyes were wide with faux innocence. "Tom, I swear, it's not what it looks like." "Isn't it?" I said coolly. "Breaking the sink to see him, Lila? That's low." She gasped, a flush creeping up her neck. How did you know?" "Lucky guess," I said, the bitter taste of betrayal settling in my mouth. My mind raced, plotting, planning. The image of her and Mike, so close, was branded in my thoughts. I needed answers, and revenge. The days that followed were a blur of whispered phone calls and late-night internet searches. I learned that Mike wasn't just a plumber but a part-time model, of sorts, and an aspiring actor. Lila's infatuation with him wasn't just physical, she was enamored by the idea of him, the excitement he represented outside our mundane marriage. One evening, as I sat in the dark living room waiting for her return, I decided how I would unravel her world. I started with the bank accounts and credit cards, securing my financial safety. Then, the calls began, to her family, our friends, and eventually to Mike's wife. Yes, he was married. The fallout was spectacular. Lila's social circle crumbled, her affair, painted in lurid detail by the rumor mill, made her a pariah. By the time we sat across from each other at the lawyer's office, signing the divorce papers, the woman I had married was gone, replaced by a stranger with hollow eyes and a shattered reputation. As I walked out of the office, the last piece of my revenge settled into place. I had won, but at what cost? The love we once shared was obliterated, replaced by the sweet, venomous satisfaction of retribution. And yet, as I drove away, the empty seat beside me echoed with a question: was it worth it? I navigated through the chaotic streets, my mind as tumultuous as the traffic around me. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving a canvas of twilight smeared across the sky. Pulling into a quiet side street, I parked and checked my phone for any messages from Lila. Nothing. It was just as well, every interaction with her now was laced with venom. I stepped out of the car, buttoned my jacket, and made my way to the small, nondescript bar where I had agreed to meet an old friend, Marcus. He was a private investigator, someone I had known since college, and if anyone could unearth the full extent of Lila's deceit, it was him. The bar was dimly lit and smelled of old wood and spilt beer. Marcus was already there, seated in a shadowy corner booth. His face lit up when he saw me, but his smile faltered as he took in my grim expression. "Tom, you look like hell," he said, as I slid into the booth opposite him. "Feels about right," I replied, forcing a half-smile. "Thanks for meeting me on such short notice." "Of course," Marcus said, his voice serious. He slid an envelope across the table. "I've done some digging like you asked. You're not going to like what I found." I opened the envelope, my hands trembling slightly. Inside were photographs and various documents. Pictures of Lila and Mike, not just at the gym or at our house, but at various restaurants, a park, even at a holiday cottage that Lila had claimed she was visiting with her sisters. "I don't understand. How long has this been going on?" My voice was a whisper, drowned out by a sudden laugh from the bar. "Months, at least," Marcus replied quietly. "And there's more. Mike isn't just some random guy. He's connected to a group of, let's just say they're not just fixing sinks. There's a whole scam running, women lure him in for jobs, and he cleans out the houses. Valuables, information, you name it." The room spun slightly as I processed his words. "And Lila's involved?" "It seems so," Marcus said. He hesitated before adding, "Tom, there's a chance she's in deeper than just an affair. We might be looking at criminal activities." Rage and shock warred within me. I slammed my fist on the table, causing a few heads to turn. "I want to take them down. All of them." Marcus nodded, his expression grave. "I thought you might say that. I have a plan, but it's risky. We'll need to set a trap, and you'll have to play along. Can you do that?" "Whatever it takes," I said through gritted teeth. "What do you need me to do?" "First, we need proof. I suggest you go home, pretend you suspect nothing. Leave some valuables in plain sight, and install hidden cameras. We catch him in the act, and then we go to the police." "And Lila?" My voice cracked around her name. "We catch her in the act too. It's the only way to make sure she doesn't slip through the legal cracks." I nodded, a plan forming, a cold resolve settling in my chest. "Okay. Let's do it." As I drove home, the weight of betrayal pressed down on me, but so did a new sensation, determination. Lila had chosen her path, and now, I was choosing mine. The game was on, and I was not going to lose. The following day dawned gray and uninviting, a mirror to my mood. After a sleepless night strategizing with Marcus, I was ready to put our plan into action. By mid-morning, I had purchased and installed hidden cameras in various parts of our house, particularly focusing on the living room and kitchen, places where Mike would likely conduct his business. Marcus had connected me with a tech expert who set up a live feed to both our phones, ensuring we could watch the events unfold in real time. With the stage set, I left a couple of ostentatious watches and some cash slightly exposed in my study, bait that I hoped Mike couldn't resist. To solidify my alibi, I announced to Lila over breakfast that I was required to go on a sudden business trip out of town, and would not be back until the next day. Her response was too quick, too eager. "Oh, what a shame. But don't worry about me, I'll find something to keep myself busy," she said with a bright, almost relieved smile. Driving away, I felt a pang of sorrow for the life we once shared, quickly crushed under the weight of my resolve. I didn't go far, just to the next town over, where Marcus and I set ourselves up in a motel with a clear view of the live feeds. We didn't have to wait long. Mid-afternoon, the front door to our house opened, and Mike walked in, not with the caution of a guest, but the familiarity of someone who had crossed that threshold many times before. Lila greeted him with a kiss that lingered far too long for comfort. They didn't even bother to check the house before heading to the kitchen. My breath caught as I watched them on my phone's screen, laughing and flirting openly. Mike's hand brushed the small of her back as Lila poured him a drink. Look at them, like it's their house, Marcus muttered beside me, disgust lacing his tone. I clenched my jaw, watching as Mike's gaze landed on the hallway leading to my study. He said something to Lila, who nodded, and they split up, Mike heading towards the study, and Lila to the living room, presumably to keep watch. Here we go, Marcus said, his voice low. Get ready to record everything. My finger hovered over the record button as Mike slipped into my study. The cameras captured every move as he opened drawers, his actions becoming increasingly frantic when he discovered the watches and cash. Stuffing them into his pockets, he then moved to my personal files, flipping through them, photographing some with his phone. That's enough evidence to nail him, I whispered, fury mounting as I watched the betrayal unfold. Wait for it, Marcus advised, his eyes on the feed from the living room where Lila now appeared to be texting furiously. Suddenly, her text seemed to alert Mike, who glanced up at a camera as if sensing it for the first time. Panic flashed across his face as he rushed from the study, only to run into Lila, who was coming to warn him. They know they're busted, Marcus said, as we watched them argue, gesturing wildly. Let's go, I said, no longer able to contain my anger. We drove back to the house, calling the police en route. Arriving home, I stormed inside, Marcus at my heels. Lila and Mike, caught in the act of gathering their things, froze as they saw us. The look of shock on Lila's face was almost satisfying. Police are on their way, I announced, my voice steely. Hope he was worth it, Lila. As we waited for the police to arrive, Marcus kept his camera trained on the pair, capturing every moment of their downfall. Despite the chaos, a sense of justice, cold and hard, settled within me. This was the end of the road for their deceit, and the beginning of my new life, built on the ruins of the old. The police arrived within minutes, their arrival marked by the shrill wail of sirens that seemed to echo the chaos of my emotions. As they handcuffed Mike and Lila, I watched, stone-faced, while a cold satisfaction settled deep within me. Lila's earlier defiance crumbled into desperation as she was led away. Tom, please, you have to believe me, I never meant for it to go this far. Her pleas fell on deaf ears, my heart had hardened beyond reach. At the station, I watched through the one-way mirror as Lila and Mike were interrogated. Her confession was a symphony of betrayal, each word a note that played the tune of our ruined marriage. She admitted to everything, the affair, the scams, the lies. It was all a game to her, until she got caught. Mike, with less to lose, was more forthright. He detailed other houses, other unsuspecting husbands, his casual cruelty a stark contrast to the life I had believed we led. His nonchalance fueled my resolve for a deeper revenge than the law could offer. After the formalities were squared away and the bail was denied, I met Marcus outside the police station. It's not enough, I said, the night air chilling my already cold demeanor. Marcus, ever my ally in this twisted journey, nodded in understanding. What do you have in mind? Ruin, I replied simply. Not just their freedom, but everything they hold dear. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal battles and social maneuvering. Using my contacts in the media, I ensured that Lila's and Mike's names became synonymous with fraud and betrayal. The news articles and scandalous headlines ensured that their reputations were irrevocably destroyed. But the true masterpiece of my revenge was more personal. I discovered that Mike owned a small cabin in the woods, his only real property, bought with his ill-gotten gains. One evening, under the cloak of darkness, I drove there, a canister of gasoline in my trunk. The cabin, isolated and unguarded, was as vulnerable as I had been. I doused the structure in fuel, the smell of gasoline sharp against the backdrop of the serene woods. Lighting a match, I watched as it caught fire, the flames licking hungrily at the wood. The fire roared to life, consuming everything, an inferno of purging. Back home, I turned my attention to Lila. I couldn't burn her possessions as I had Mike's cabin, but I could burn her financially. I used my influence to freeze her accounts and called in every favor to ensure no company would hire her. When I finally faced Lila again, it was in the courtroom for our divorce proceedings. She was a shell of the woman I had married, broken, penniless, and alone. As she signed the papers, her hands trembled, and she refused to meet my gaze. "This isn't justice, Tom," she whispered, a tear escaping down her cheek. "No," I agreed, my voice void of sympathy, "but it's revenge." I left the courtroom without a backward glance, the chapter of my life that contained Lila firmly closed. As I walked into my new, solitary future, the echo of the gavel's final bang was a grim reminder of the cost of betrayal. And so, I moved forward, alone and unburdened by the past, the ashes of my revenge cold and settled behind me.